Welcome to this series of Parenting with Purpose and African Wisdom. I've been sharing this book and I'll continue to share it with you. Basically, Purpose in Parenting, which is the name of this chapter, is one of the topics we shall be discussing as a principle in intentional parenting, where we are parenting with the end in view, asking the question, what kind of child would I like this baby, this young person to become? What kind of person would I like them to become? And then remembering that by my desires should actually be underlined, undergirded by God's desire for my children. Remember, the Bible says, trust in the Lord and He'll give you the desires of your heart. So praying for our children to become what God intended for them to become. And then working with God as a partner in parenting. So this is a book, Parenting with Purpose. And today we want to look at purposeful parenting and determined destinations. Now, in this book, I use African proverbs for African wisdom and biblical proverbs for biblical wisdom. Now, coming from Africa, wow, we are rich in proverbs. And many parents would bring up their children with the proverbs and with the storytelling, so that they lift up qualities that they would like to see in the lives of their children. Storytelling is more or less like getting lost amid the flurry and the hurry of Western education. But we should never ever forget that we have proverbs for wisdom and even stories to underline those proverbs. So let me share today with us two African proverbs. The first one is from Nigeria. A child who is carried on the back will not know how long the journey is. A child who is carried on the back will not know how long the journey is. You know what they'll do? They even fall asleep on your back. And many parents today are carrying children on their back. I remember hearing long ago of a family where a 40-year-old was carried on his parents' back until at 40 he is still living in his mother's home and getting his mother to do laundry for him. Now, of course, the mother would make sure she had employees. Like in Africa, we can afford to have someone live with you and cook and do laundry. And then one morning, this guy got tired. The young man who was working here got tired and left. And the young man, believe you me, came out of his room carrying his dirty laundry, found his mother in the living room, and threw the laundry at her. You can wash them now. You made him go. A child who is carried on the back will not know how long the journey is. You can't have a 40-year-old baby living around in the house. Anyway, that's a Nigerian proverb. Ghanaian proverb, an army of sheep led by a lion can defeat an army of lions led by a sheep. Interesting. And then you have a biblical proverb from Proverbs 3:6. In all your ways acknowledge Him, that is God, and you make straight your paths. Let's look at the meanings of these proverbs. The Nigerian proverb, I've more or less like given some of the meaning, because a child on the back is a dependent child. So the African proverb discourages dependency. Africans believe that a child's sense of responsibility should increase with age. You can't have a big strapping body and have little ounces of responsibility. This is why many African communities and rites of passage, where a child graduated through developmental stages. After completing one age group, the child was expected to never again indulge in behavior associated with the previous stage, but instead to engage in more mature behavior. Some parents may be tempted to carry a child too long, like the example I just gave. But the only reason why someone should be carried, quote unquote, on their parents' back for a long time is if they are disabled or underdeveloped. And even then, they need to be taught small ways of self-help. And so Africans believe when you grow up, get out of your mother's kitchen. And then we have an army of sheep led by a lion can defeat an army of lions led by a sheep. I admire women in Africa who have never been to school or college, but have brought up children who have worked hard and studied and become medical doctors, lawyers, successful business people, men and women living with integrity and bringing up their own families. These African mothers, some of them even single. We call some of them Mama Mboga. Mama Mboga means this single woman wakes up early in the morning, buys vegetables, puts them on her back, and goes selling them from house to house. Many of them have taken children to university with money gotten from the business of carrying their vegetables on their back. They are called Mama Mboga. So these can be described then as lions leading sheep. But the fact that they never went to school while their children have studied through their mother's leadership, persistence, and tenacity. These mothers are true lionesses, overcoming insurmountable difficulties, yet they persist on leading their children with purpose. And then we have the third proverb: in all your ways acknowledge Him, God, and you'll make straight your paths. This is acknowledging the fact that parenting is a God-given responsibility, and to look up to Him, encouraging us to look up to Him for wisdom and strength. God in turn honors the labor of the parents who look up to Him and removes obstacles from their way, gives them power to overcome them, so that they can bring up their children to actually arrive at God's appointed goals. So purposeful parenting, remember we are talking of determined destinations. Purposeful parenting determines the direction family leadership desires to take and identifies the gifting in each child, and then fans that gifting into a flame as the child develops. That's point number one. Point number two, purposeful parenting uses words, examples, stories to paint the destination, and then ingrains the qualities that are brought up by these stories into action and motivation for training. Earlier on, we reminded ourselves a quotation I always use from my husband, the father of my 4 children, where he says that you identify values that you want your children to practice. And then as you teach them and supervise them to practice those values change into virtues. And as you teach them to practice those virtues form their character. So character, when you see it flowering out of a child, has been ingrained from values to virtues and then to character. You can also have it ingrained in the wrong way. I remember reading a story of a child of a young man who was getting jailed for murder. And he wrote a letter to his mother. He said, "Mother, I'm going to jail forever for murder, but we murdered with you. And when I murdered, I was stealing. We stole with you. Because when I brought home that first pen that didn't belong to me, which I'd stolen from my friend in school, you didn't ask me where it came from." And so on. And the series continued until the young man stole a bicycle from a friend. The mother didn't ask where it came from. He sold it for spare parts. Mother knew. Mother kept quiet. And maybe daddy knew too, and he kept quiet. Point number C. Purposeful parenting involves supervision. Many parents say, "But I supervise my child's homework." Supervision is beyond homework, because homework is for academic success. Do you supervise them cleaning their room? Do you supervise them making their bed? Do you supervise them doing their chores? Do you supervise them hanging out with friends, just to know who did you go out with, where did you go, and so on? Not like a policeman, but a conversation of wanting to know. Point number 4, purposeful parenting begins with a plan in mind and then translates that plan into a process. For example, a purposeful parent may say, "I want my child to learn to live independently. And so I'll teach them to cook, whether they are boys or girls, because I may send my son to university far, far, far away, where they have to fend for themselves, to shop, to cook." So as we walk through this book, Parenting with Purpose, grab yourself a copy, Keswick Bookshop in Nairobi, Textbook Center, or Amazon for those who like virtual reading. Please follow us. Remember to subscribe.